how many postures you would have, and we have a lot of different postures in all the Hunga forms, not to mention Tai Chi and the others, but we have a lot of body postures and a lot of different positions, but they do fall into a category. You know. The basic thing we talk about generally is high, middle, and low. That's your space. Shoulder width, 45-degree corners. So if you understand that space, then that's what you have to work your techniques in the realm of that space. So that's postures is a body form. Every body form, every posture has a unique body form. And the direction of your forces is what you're trying to generate. So a back fist. Typical back fist comes off a trapping hand, a lift. Right. So trap. The trapping hand, ready, roll. So a lot of it is how do we use the strength? What's the correct strength? See, you know, on an application level, using strength is something that we're learning from the dynamic part of the form. When we do this, when we do this, you know, all of those is learning to use our strength. When we do this, if we understand that this is going to intercept, then this is the position, your final position. The final position should be in this plane, right? So you can do this and try to bang the person's arm and try and knock it out of the way as a block. But that's not the most effective. That's probably the most primitive way of using a movement, is to kind of hit your opponent's arm. That's the most crudest way of being defensive. But it's not that it's not the least effective, it's one of the effective ways, right? So if Marguerite threw a punch and I just whacked her in the arm, that would work. You know, that would, but that, if you're doing an art form, you don't want to really do it without any finesse. So if she throws the punch, you would want to maybe deflect. You don't want to crash into it. But if you were to crash into it on a defense level, you might want to use this hand here and then use this right there. Yeah, that's where you have to hit, right in the joint. You know, the joint where the ligaments and tendons are the softest area and the most damage you can do. Yeah, you know, when you cut chicken legs, right, where do you cut? You cut it at the joint. When you hit it at the bone, it kind of shatters a bit. That takes a lot more effort, but you hit it in the joint, or you can even just use a little and just wiggle it down, and the joint starts to separate. Right? So hitting joints are the best thing to do. You know, every time you get hit in a joint, you get injured, right? Your knee joints, you know, those are shoulders a joint too, yeah. How about there?
Right there?
Yeah, you're right into muscle there. Right in the muscle. Right where the tendon goes.
So right there, not like up here. That would just be right here.
Yeah, that's a clavicle area, but yeah. So you're going to hit the neck or you hit here. So if you're hooking like this, right? If you're throwing a hook, boom. A nice punch in the shoulder would do a little damage to the shoulder. Right? So that's what in here. You know. So this is like right in here, right? You bang right in that joint. But you know, that's, you know, you would rather punch the person in the face, right? Because you want, you know, it looks better. The nose, yeah, or here, or the temple. You know, jawbone. Yeah, jawbone's pretty good. Yeah. You know, good shot to the jawbone kind of makes the person have trouble eating the next day, you know. So no, but seriously, when you strike, there's the body form. So where do you get the power from? This is rolling, so you only want to intercept. So when we intercept something, it's just going to the place that the technique is going to come through. That's what it is. So you just intercept it here, and then your secondary hand can do the next motion. That's what a trapping hand is. You block, and then that's just a part of a continuation of something else. Like if Minor threw, say, a punch to the here, because this is, like you wouldn't use a trapping hand up here. It's down here, right? So this is what we know. This is a trapping hand. This is a cutting hand. So between a trap and a cut is a technique, right? So if I trap the hand and I do this, then I have a technique, right? What did I do? I rolled to a cut and I turned to this. So we know these three positions. We know this. We know the cut. And we know this. We know this, right? So that's what we're learning. We're learning positions relative to our body so that we can apply it. So we're here. I might do this. Right? That's your typical back fist. Techniques aren't just one arm doing this kind of stuff. You're working the two hands. Why is this hand here? Secondary defense here. Can switch, because if I turn and I do this, that becomes your trap. This becomes your removal, and this becomes your back fist. So that's the sequence of events that has to happen. So when you want to work on a technique, you have to have a partner, but before you can work that technique, you have to learn the movement. So in the form, you learn this, and you learn this. So you're here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So it does take a little bit of coordination to do this and get your body 1, 2, 3. So hand, eye, body, waist, and stance. So the hand, eye, body is body form, body position, space. Waist, turn. Stance. Right? Horse, the leaning. So that's why the footwork, it's the last of that sequence, hand, eye, body, waist, stance, because the leg work is so hard to develop because our legs are not pre-wired to do any dexterous type things. So agility of footwork takes a lot of coordination and shifting of weight and agility to move. And we do all that in the footwork, in the transition, but do we get our legs familiar enough to be able to get out of our own way without tripping ourselves? So the only way is to learn how to do footwork. So when you're doing your stance work and you're shifting and stepping and shifting and stepping, it's not just moving your, the gross leg. You have to go into position, adjust your feet, take it into a direction. When you turn and you pivot your foot. That means you have to relax your hip. You have to transfer your weight. You have to turn your torso. You have to step. And then you have to turn and then move. That's all footwork. That's all footwork related. It's called ma bu. Ma bu is stepping, and bu fat is stepping method. So in every one of those things, there's a technique, there's a method, and there's a type of stance. So your transition side is your bu fat. Twisting and turning, the footwork has to open and close. Your hips have to be working with it in coordination. So that's what we have to do, is get the footwork working more with the upper body. Because for everything that happens below, something happens above. Something happened above, something has to happen below. That's what upper-lower integration is. Each hand has its own intelligence. Because if it didn't have its own intelligence, everything would be like this. Because they're doing the same thing. The brain wants to do everything the same. It's easiest to do things like this. It's a lot harder to do things like this. Harder to do a trap and hand and have your hand stay with your hand is a sensitivity. But when you do this and you train and you like this, in the 5 images, when you turn and you do this, you're building a reactive sensitivity to that in the body form. Because when I do this, if I don't relax my arm, I can't get my hand to cooperate and do that without taking my hand away. This kind of thing is just like when someone's learning how to move their feet, and while we're pivoting like this, it ends up like trying to get your feet into place because the legs don't know how to maneuver. And you see that a lot with people trying to do like the pedal step. When we step like this and we're pivoting like this, they step and then they can't get out of their own way. So then you have to pick your foot up to do that. And you know that's an exaggeration, but that's why people have trouble with it, because they haven't learned to maneuver their, you know, the hips or their feet, because the rotary part of the motion is a dysfunction. It doesn't know to do that because the legs hasn't learned how to do that. It's not even able to, people aren't even able to pull the right muscles in to get that to happen. Now when I turn my foot like this, the reason why it's difficult is because I'm not just doing this. When I do this, I have to switch to here. So when you do that, that's a control factor. When we go like this and we turn, it's a toe-heel relationship. And that's one of the things, when you cross like this and you turn, you actually have to spread your feet again to get into the wider stance. Otherwise you end up like this and then you're stuck, and then you can't really move out of that. So when you're first learning it, you maneuver and adjust. Maneuver and adjust, maneuver and adjust. So what's the adjustment? It's the minute tweaking of the joint when you're in a position. So what I mean by that is when he throws a punch, my hand is here. But it's not tied to my legs until I make my other adjustment. If I do this and I want to turn, then my hand is moving with my legs. So if you do this and you move your leg and then this part is disconnected, it starts to get awkward. The spatial distancing is a challenge. So we're here. 1, 2, 3. So every phase of the movement, it almost comes down to like drawing stick figures. Your hand is like this, then you're like this, then you're like this, then you're like this, you're like this, like this. All of those are positions, and they're all relative to a certain space. If I'm here and I turn, then I just turn my body and kept this relationship consistent. I didn't turn and then do that, because where is that in our form? We don't have a position like that. But we think we have that position because that's what we're trying to do. So when we're up here, we can do this, but we don't have any position like this. Now, to use this, I have to turn and then turn my body to be here. So this is our direction, right? Do we have this cover hand? It's here in your fuhak, right? 1, 2. There's your cover. The elbow has to come down like this in order for you to slant and capture. So those are the phases in your move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of these joints have to be controlled to create that motion. You're here. This, the wrist, right? When my hand is here, when I intercept it like this, there's no strength in this position till I do this. You see? So you should try it. See what that feels like. Because the feeling of this movement and the position is what you're looking for when you block. So if I'm here, right? So do we have that? We look in the mirror. Do we have this? Do we have this? So everybody just do that. Let's see if we actually understand what that is. Go like this first, and then do this. What's that? Using your forearm, right? You're here, and then you're here, right?
Tensing this, but is this your point of strength here?
No, we're not actually thinking about strength. We're thinking about structure. So when we're in this position and we do this, that's hold the ball in Tai Chi, right? So the geometry of this position is what your body has to recognize as a muscle memory. So when the hand goes like this, everybody just try it. So you see, everybody interprets it differently, right? So, without going into what everyone else is doing, because then it becomes a little bit more personal. When we're here, if I sink my elbow, I change the dimension of motion. I didn't push the movement. Because everyone thinks that if you're going to apply the technique, it has to be very physical. Means put power into the movement. You don't need power in a movement until you're ready to strike. Right? So when you're here, you just relax the shoulder and turn. So when the hand goes like this, it's really reformatting that position. So then that's sinking the elbow and tie it into that position. Yeah. Ready, go. So if you look closely at the hand in slow motion, it's just relaxing your arm. But by doing this, this becomes a structure. That structure is what redirects the force. Now, what else redirects the force is you turn. But you can't turn without tying into your lower appendages, because when I just turn, I'm stuck. Why? Because I'm double weighted. I have the weight on both legs. So the important thing is that when you do this, you turn. Now I shifted weight to my left side, because this is the side that's here. Now, when I shift weight to here, it allows me to turn. So this is how you do your salute. Then when you shift your weight, if you notice what happens when I shift my weight, I projected the force to here, right? Or the intent to here. And then once you get to here, there's an adjustment to stabilize this, and then it comes to here when you turn your body out. So when we're doing form, what we're learning is how to use your strength, because it's constantly adjusting in position. So if you look at the arm, it's like this. It's like this. It's like this. It's adapting to space, distance. This here, here, and here. So it's not flat. It's dimensional. So your body has to go through all those little nuances to have an effective movement directionally. So when you're here, it's that. It's that. It's that. And it's that. Then we're here. You fold 1, 2, 3. So, the idea of upper-lower coordination is this concept. So that's as simple as that is. If you learn it here and you learn it here, then your body already has a program built here. Now, when you train through the different forms, when that common action starts to get recognized in the body, then you'll start to tie in some of the cross-referencing to other techniques. So even though you have all these postures, they fall into that common category of that type of motion. So that's what we have to kind of understand. a fundamental song gung fu. Elbow down, lift, turn. So you break down the movement, and we're here, right? Typical double arm position. Now this position, without actually understanding the position, all looks the same day when someone's going through the form. But when I look through the group and I look for a position, which one is right, which one has strength, is it too flat, you can see, whether the position is correct or not by whether it's tied into the legs and the body. So there's something that you can experience. And then when you go like this, your hand is actually doing this, right? So one is going up and one is going down. When one goes up, then when you start to turn the center and then finish the movement, that's the change in the dimension, change in the plane of motion, right? If I'm here and the hands are starting to change, it's changing because my body is up and down, right? So the body is splitting up, and then when I start to turn, I'm in that position. If I reverse, they start to come down. They're still misaligned or one high, one low until they catch up to each other, and then you come back to here. And then you're here again. That's what happens in motion as building the transition. So our bodies, everyone's body's wired a little bit differently, and everything that you see is perceived differently. So to develop that timing, you have to develop that keen eye to see what you're looking for and then try to replicate it. But that's really experience. Because while we're looking at everybody doing it, we don't see the difference sometimes. So that's why so when we're here, 1, 2. Now if we were to drop the hand, in slow motion it would look like this. Right. So the more your body is in tune with the action, the more control you get into the different components that has to be moving at the right time to get into the right space. So that's the timing that we have to build into our system. So it's going to vary because maybe the leg work might be different, maybe the footwork might be different. So you go to the leaning. If you're sinking, is the legs turning to create the stance? Are you lifting and then turning and then putting the weight here, relaxing the joint here so that this closes? Are you sinking the elbow and then merging it so now they're back to level and square, and your structure is like this and not like this and not like this? So where you sink the elbow, how far you bring it to your body position is what you're looking for as a strength. When you're in a position, you should feel strength in your position. So the strength is not pushing, the strength should be here. Right? So sink your elbow and you feel strength here, not here. See? Why don't you need strength here? Because if he throws a punch and I'm in this position and I'm doing this, that's strength going out. You don't need strength going out. Why don't you need strength going out? Because all the force is dissipated here, taking it down. If I take it down and then want to do that, I just wasted motion, left myself open for him to break my jaw, right? So if I sink here, when he wants to break my jaw, this is going to go there, you see? Because my effort is here. You can't, forces are one directional. So if I'm here and I'm going like this, I have no ability to do this. So when I'm here, I have to do this. So from here, I have to cover, because I'm not committed. Why aren't I committed here? because gravity took my elbow here. So I have no strength taking it down, it's just there. So I can change because I'm not committed. So using strength and not committing is, very important. So you don't want to use the wrong strength at the wrong time. So when we're here, we sink. You're not even committed. Gravity, boom, it's there. But you're not committed 100% because now I can change. If I sink to here, I can change. You learned this already from the second form. You learned this from already, Kung Ji Kun. So, when we're in our posture, then the strength is gone. You're just structurally there, meaning strength that it's not pushing out, it's not pulling in. That's erroneous strength. You don't need that strength. When we're here, we sink. It's loose, so we lift the elbow. We lift the elbow in order to drop the elbow. We spread the elbows in order to pull them back. We drop the elbows in order to go forward. So every time you sink and drop, gravity will take your components in the direction downward. So what all you have to do is relax and then push. Now you have balance and motion. Movement should be not just physical. It has to be soft and then hard, soft and then hard. That's what yin and yang is. So every time you do a movement, there's a softness, the transition to there. We cross, sink, step. We step up. We actually sink in order to go up. Sinking sometimes is gathering. When you want to jump, what do? You bend your knees. So you can physically bend your knees to jump, but if you put too much effort in the physical pulling down, you can't get up, right? Because you're committed to go down. So when you jump, you have to fall, and then when you reach the bottom, then you spring off, because your legs are like springs. So when you go down, you're coiling, that's gathering, and then you release when you go up. Same with the hands. When we sink, we're loading. When we extend, we're releasing. So if we get those ideas, it's all theoretical. Turn, right? Turn, we shift, stomp, and thrust. There's a phase in there that your body is making adjustments. But we're not doing this. That's physical back and forth. One, sink, step, thrust. There's a relaxation phase in between your movement. Right? Where's the relaxation phase? The sinking of the elbow, the thrusting of the hand. These concepts, we talk about them all the time. But when we interpret that concept of sinking the elbow, the body misinterprets it. It thinks it's just a downward force, but so that's part of learning. We got into this because traditional arts, when they're applied wrong, looks ineffective, and it looks clumsy and awkward and pretty horrible. And that's probably like 80% of the stuff out there. You see it on the videos when people use it's totally wrong strength, totally out of position, and people that actually are fighters or they do a lot of sparring, they look at that and they can tell that it's effective or not because they're probably fighters. So the traditional arts don't get they don't get the recognition. They say it's useless, but it's not true. It is actually, but it's hard to develop. It takes a long time. So when someone says, "Oh, I've been doing kung fu for 10 years," they say, "Well, you must be pretty effective," but probably not, because it's not. There's too much material to get it to work correctly. So you really you have to go full cycle many, many times for the simple movements to become, practical. They used to say one of the best warriors and back in the day only used one punch. But his one punch probably was tied into all the advanced motions that he developed over time. It's not just the punch, it's actually his action, how the body moves. And all your skillful fighters have that in their body too. Not developed the same way, they develop in different ways. But if you notice, most of the fighting systems like boxing or wrestling, they use very simple moves. It's just basic body mechanics, but it's simple but effective. So all the things that we're learning, it becomes simple if the body is responding correctly, using the correct strength. So, and the correct strength is building, understanding the position. When we do this and this position is not the same as this position. In form, it's parallel, it's square, elbow down, angle 2 open. When we're going like this, now the strength is down. So the strength would be like this. When we do this, the strength appears to be pulling in, but actually you're sinking. So there's no real pulling in strength. Because if you're pulling in, you can't drop your elbow. You can't pull in and drop your elbow. You have to drop your elbow and then that will pull in. Just like in Tai Chi. You can pull it in like this or you can drop your elbow. So you can't pull and sink. Right? It's a conflict. So that's what we have to understand. So when you're doing this, it just drops. Now you have strength in structure. You don't need a lot of tension. You just have to have enough tension to maintain the structure. And then you open, then you lift. You open up from the clavicle area. Your chest opens up because your back is closing. And then you spread. Then you push. So there's a lot of, control in the body, and we're using specific muscles to do certain actions. So that's where, it's different from bodybuilding, because we're using sequential muscle strength. It's not just gross contractions that just does this. That's what that is, just pulling in. But that's one dimension. When we do this, the whole body tied into that. You're tied into it, and then it goes all the way to the soles of your feet. So when we do our movements, don't look out here. Look at the line of energy that goes into the body, down through the torso, into the legs, to the ground, and the strength that comes from the ground up through the body and out through the limbs to the fingers. And you say, well, what kind of magical energy is that? No, it's just a coordination of the sequence of events that allows the muscles to do this, and to do this, and to do this, and to do this. Those are the sequential chains of the movement. When we're here, this is not the same as this, because there's action there. So we learn to use our muscular different from what we think our muscles are used for. And then we have to find the correct position. Okay. All right, good. So that's trapping hand. We started with that. So that's all that. Now when you cross this, cut, step, thrust. So this one is open, different from this. And then open the chest, turn, sink, and push. Sink. So sink the elbow and lift. Lift. So this is here, and this is actually in this position. When you come to this position, if you turn your hand like this, there's your middle block. That's how you check your position. When we're like this, it's just like fist under elbow. See, fist under elbow is this. Yeah. So we have this in Tai Chi. We go like this. 1, 2, 3. Right? Set up for fist under elbow. So this is like in Gung Ji Kun, Lao. So what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's how we get into fist on elbow. But this fist on elbow, we go in suspended stance, is like this. Same arm position. So that's the cross training and the reference points that now you know this, we know this. That's the same action. Now your body starts to be able to replicate that motion, gets into subconscious movement, and then when he throws a punch, it's like this. There's my hand. So there's your position. It's crossing the body, turning 45 degrees. Make the fist, you're under here. Under here, it's like this. Right? So that's a body form. The body form is your structure. That's that posture. When we go like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, we have to sit back and turn. So we wind into it. That's using your strength correctly, but not stiff strength. It's live strength because we're spiraling into a position and settling into the stance. And then we open it up and then come back to center. And then we would go forward into the rounding. So that's what happens when your body moves in space, tying into the dimensional changes. So we're here, back fist. Right? Parry and punch is this. This hand goes to here. This hand goes to here. This hand goes to here. This hand goes up here. This hand comes down. We turn the body and we finish the hand. Now you see, both hands have a specific intelligence. If you watch the hands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're making minute adjustments because those are your structures going from one position to the next. Tied to your legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. 2, right? 1, 2, 3. So without using too much physical force, you use directional force. Sink, turn, 1, 2, 3. Now this hand is maneuvering with the other hand. Just like this, right? So I turn and step. That's what the hands are doing. If I turn here, it's like this. If I turn here, it's like this. So isn't that what we do in Gung Ji Kun? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. That's just two pieces of it. If we make it into one continuous circle, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So is your elbows and your knees connected? Is your elbows and knees connected? When you stroke down like this and you sit back and I fold, is there a substantial and insubstantial leg? Are you driving the movement from this leg and then putting it into it? It's not just waving it like this. There's no differentiating between the solid and empty. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as you progress and your understanding changes, then you have to build more phasing in the motion. So you have to change when and how certain things happen. It's not always picked up in the beginning because the body doesn't cooperate, because the body doesn't know. So this is what you have to go through as a training. That's just the back fist, right? What's the back fist? Integration, upper and lower body. So these concepts that we have, in the traditional arts are pretty deep in many layers of how you can do them. But in the first layer, it's that. That's all it is. A leaning stance, a cat stance, a position like this, and a position like that. There's nothing else in between because there's no kinetic chain built into your movement. There's no muscular sequencing. There's no phrasing in the motion. There's no, different phases of the three-dimensional changes. You have forward, you have backward, you have right, you have left, you have up, you have down. So we can't get around that if you're building dimensional movement. That's the right side. Is it happening on the left side? So when you pull back, when you sink, right? There's your body movement. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. The elbows, the knees, the shoulders, the hips, the ankles, and the wrists. That's standard integration. Before Hakaimon, it's critical, but in standard integration of all the internal arts, Tai Chi, Pagua, Xingyi, they follow the same principles. Because it's universal. Those principles are universal in the traditional internal arts because all the grand masters that pass these movements down learn from the mother systems, which really are written in the classics as how they should be done. So how many of the people actually get to achieve in it is very few of those grand masters that had students that actually were good enough to capture it. So those are the things that they were saying would be lost in translation or lost in in not passing down, or lost in not passing down to the next student. But it's not sometimes because it's not passed down. No one puts enough effort and time into it to achieve, because obviously, if someone has to make a living and they're struggling, they're not spending all their time doing that. So only if someone is doing this for a living like I do it, then I think like that. But no one else thinks that. Yeah, your mind's boggled down with things that are really important. But that's how it is. 1, 2, 3. So the hands close, you sit back, open, step, thrust, open, push. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just one fluid motion because the body already has built that mechanism into it. So can you do gung kun like you do Tai Chi? Right? You can, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Right? You're here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. What we just did here is just this. Right? If you take one movement, do it 10 times, it cycles. Becomes a continuity of movement. But can your body track that? That's part of the skill level. You practice until you have an understanding of that. That your hands are doing this. You're pulling back. You're expanding and contracting. So when we talk about cycling through simple things, evolve. So the logo actually represents that. Those gears represent the continuous cycle, beginning to end. And each cycle is a change of understanding and a level or a layer of how you're evolving. So, but the difficulty is the body, has to be, sort of deprogrammed and reprogrammed and deprogrammed and reprogrammed constantly. So it is a step beyond just a mental thing. So, because it's tied into, the apparatus that's tied to the neurons and the wiring into the musculature. So, but is there a benefit to that? Only we know the results of it. So you evolve, right? So if you practice, you get something out of it. The more you put in, the more you get out, right? Like the stock market, right? The more you invest. Oh, steady growth. But that's movement. When you practice it, you begin to understand what these movements represent. And then, your understanding changes and you start to, it opens up doors as you get to the thresholds. So sequential learning is just one layer of learning. Transitions, body form, geometry, principles are all another stage. So when you do this, because we have a forward projection of movement, it's this way. Now you say, well, we're not using our legs. It's true, we're not using our legs, but they are involved. Because if your legs weren't involved, you wouldn't be standing. But at the same time, is there a shifting in the soles of your feet? Is there a different sense of the body turning and then pushing as a change in adjustment in the soles of your feet? There is. So that's another level of sensitivity, because when you sink, when you pull back, to drop the elbow, pull back and push. So the pull back is partially pulling, partially turning. And then you have to tie your other side to the movement. So the bridge work is through in the whole body. The rise, the fall, the right, the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So, you've heard of visualization, right? You track something. The visualization is in your body's connection to movement. Do you feel that rise, that fall, that sink? The different components in your body being maneuvered based on this action that's happening out here, because it's just expressed here, but it's actually in here. So this is the superficial part of the motion, but the integrity of the position is really in here. So when you lift your elbow, when you lift it, not just to here, fold the elbow and lift from the shoulder. So this hand almost is alongside your ear. So this is a pao chui, or pao chang. And then from here, because if you go to here, then you're not able to sink your elbow the same way. When you go to here, then you can sink your elbow and unwind your forearm. That's sinking the elbow relaxer. It's called sink your elbow relaxer. Qim jiao. It's called qim jiao sui gan. Qim jiao sui gan. The gan is your shoulder. Sui is to sink or let it droop. So, those teachers back in the day attached ideas to how they would do the movement, but it's words. But the subject to interpretation, so if your body is not understanding it, then what does sink your elbow, relax the shoulder mean? All it means is it's going down and you're relaxing, but is it happening in the motion, in the movement? Is it compatible with the direction of your force and the expanding of the body? So those are all principles, concepts. So we have to take those concepts and interpret them, so the body will understand what you're telling it to do, because that's what it is. Your mind is the director, and it's directing your body to produce or reproduce what you've just seen. So that's part of the learning. Okay, we'll bow. Hup.
You gotta have some rooting, evenly or one way. Almost seems like I tend to put more weight on this side. Maybe it's because I'm so used to doing you're going like this and then. So when you're going like this, right? Obviously you're sinking in terms of